I mean, just a second or two before he came to us, he was crossing the road in front of us. Massive guy, he's a big bull, probably in his mid-30s already. We might get a glimpse of him. Let's see. No, an elephant. As I said, I estimate him at about 6 tons, so I would say 12, 13,000. Oh, sorry, that's steering column making a funny noise. I'd estimate him at about 13,000 pounds. He'd be about 3.5 meters, give or take, so that's about, what's that in foot? It's about 9, 10, 11 feet at the shoulder. And he walks across the road, and 2 seconds later you can't see him. Now, why I'm drawing that out is to make the point that we are optimists if you go on game drive. All game drive fanatics are eternal optimists, because that is a 13,000 pound, 11-foot elephant that disappears in 2 seconds into a bush like this. And then we go along looking for the world's best camouflaged animal, or one of them, a leopard, which is only like this big and only weighs a few kilograms or a few pounds, and we expect to just find them. So I do consider all people that love this optimists. And if you're not an optimist, you certainly should be one going on game drive, because you could drive around and suddenly there's wild dogs running across the road, and hyenas and elephants, but you could also so easily miss them. So positive outlook is always important. I'm going to drive a little bit. If there's a couple of questions, we might talk about it. We are going to talk about the hyena some more. I'm trying to figure out a little bit more background to Ndapandula. And it's more speculation than fact, really, that Ndapandula is not around. So it might well be that she is around. Maybe she was that one that was coming up to the vehicle earlier. Who knows? We'll talk about that a bit, but we're just going through a dip. And even though we've got some new gear in the back, I just want to make sure we don't break up. So I'm going to just be quiet until we get to about there. Go with the time we've got. Yeah, let's go past Gari Warthol. Gari Warthol is in front of Boitsela Lodge, which is where if you've been on the drive for a while, we saw the hyena getting chased by the dogs earlier and even getting a little bite. That's the other thing. Never know what could be there a few minutes later again. So we'll go check there, and then we're going to probably head towards the hyena den, see if they've maybe made their way back to the den after this morning, see if there's activity, and by then we'll see what happens next. hello mate. Chris from Australia is asking us, what is the Shangaan word, or the Shangaan name for wild dog? And so I just have to give you a little bit of sort of cultural background here. But South Africans and Australians, and even though I'm Namibian, South African and Namibian is pretty close. It's a bit like the Australians and the New Zealanders. Even though you guys are very different, you're sort of in the same part of the world. We like to banter with each other. HD and myself, HD being Australian originally, I mean he's lived in the UK for a long time now, but being Australian, we still banter about it. So, Chris, I was going to make a little comment there about rugby or cricket or something, but I think we just leave it at that for now. Chris from Australia is just asking, what's the Shangaan name for wild dog? It's Madach. Did ask me how to spell that, but Shangaan is normally quite phonetic, the spelling. So Madach is M-A-D-A-T-C-H, I think, or S-H. Madach. M-A-D-A-T-C-H, yeah, I think that's the right spelling. African hunting dogs, African painter dogs. I like the name African painter dogs. Amazing animals, and sadly wild dogs had a very tough time in Africa, even prior to sort of modern day, the modern day epidemic, if you want, of poaching. But even in the earlier days, as far back as the 60s, people had a very bad orientation towards wild dogs. Even some of the leading conservationists of those days would sometimes have said that wild dogs really should be sort of removed from the ecosystem. In fact, people quoted it saying that. Luckily, our species is also learning more about our environments and how they all fit together, so people feel different about wild dogs now in general. I think part of it back then was about wild dogs now in general. I think part of it back then was about wild dogs now. That, believe it or not, is one of the biggest animals in Africa, or at least its nostrils. Fine, hide it from us. Guys, let's just be patient because it might pop out again. That was a hippopotamus. Or not was, it still is, we just can't see it now. I think this is the same hippo that used to live in Treehouse Dam way back, because it had the same mannerisms. It would, let's go wide again if it's moved. I don't think it's moved, it's just hiding. But I'm sure you remember the one at Treehouse as well. It would do exactly this. It would sit under the water. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Gary Larson, but I often think of Gary Larson when I see this. So you've got this massive animal sitting under the water, and then it just pokes the nose out to breathe, and then nothing happens, and then it goes under the water again. Some other hippos would just come out, but this guy seems to be a little bit shy. Now, what I think of Gary Larson is I always imagine the hippos, when like a normal hippo, not one like this that's being difficult now. Normal hippos, when they're sitting there, you've got the whole head on the water, massive head. Hippos do have very big heads. But I always imagine them with like this tiny little, thin little scrawny body under the water, and it's just putting its head out there. But as I said, that's just a Gary Larson moment. The hippo is not going to play along with us. I was hoping it's going to pop its head out, but there's two nostrils again. That's it. It's got to breathe. Hippos are normal mammals like us. They've got to breathe oxygen, but they only need their noses to be out to breathe. Again, that's it. Smile and wave. Got the warthog camera having a look at us as well, for those of you watching the warthog. All right. Tintin. I need to get a haircut. Hello Dave, from Ohio, and sorry, when I think of Ohio I think of John Grinnell, a friend of mine that's a professor, used to be a professor, I'm not sure where he's now, at the University of Ohio, but anyway, Dave's asking, have you got any animals here that compare to beavers? Yes and no. Dave, in the sense, yes, probably porcupines I would guess would be the closest. I'm not a massive sort of taxonomist type person. I never really went into the sort of, you know, what exactly makes what closest family to what kind of thing. You know, like why is a puma, for instance, the mountain lion in America, but, you know, the closest relative to that is actually the cheetah, not a leopard like many people would think. So there's lots of little reasons for why things are related to each other. But essentially beavers are big rodents, as are porcupines. So I would say that's probably the closest comparison for us in that sense. But I'm sure the question is also asking in the sense of animals that live in water and make, you know, homes in water. Otters, I guess you could compare a little bit to it. We don't get otters right here, but you do get in the bigger river systems around Kruger. So yeah, nothing really that, you know, is beaver-like in behavior. Certainly nothing that builds, you know, those incredible structures that they do, and literally has the effect and the ability to what's the word, sort of change water courses and adapt water courses. Sorry guys, I just want to take this track rather. So yeah, no, we don't have anything like beavers, but in terms of, you know, sort of relation wise, porcupines would be the one that comes to mind for me as being similar. Not too much going on in this area. It's a beautiful area. I love driving through here, but this is where, again, not to keep going back to it, but just earlier this morning there was a lot of activity. There were wild dogs running through this place, hyenas coming through, so you can understand why there's maybe not sticking away towards the hyena den. And I think for now you might enjoy the wild dogs more. So enjoy it with HT, and we'll see you back here in a bit.
Well, we just, and they stayed exactly in the same position, so it's really just another affirmation for us folks that you know, the animals, these dogs are so habituated to us, and I just thought it'd come down as a lovely sort of, and they're moving back towards us now as well. It's sort of becoming a little bit more active, but this is a great way to get some close-ups and look at those beautiful markings. And look, he's just coming later right in front of us here. Beautiful markings, those fantastic ears. I mean, we may be sitting here for quite some time, but I think most of you will agree that it's worthwhile. We don't often get to see these beautiful creatures, and just being in the presence of them, as I always say, you know, it doesn't always have to be hunting and massive amounts of activity. It's all like greet each other. It's a very, very cohesive unit, and beautiful coming through on your left, just here, mate. They look really nice. Yes. Welcome aboard, Kim. Great to have you from Minnesota with us. I've been to Minnesota many a time as well. It's been a really fantastic day. Fantastic day. Pete's got some amazing things I know this morning. We've just we're just sort of spoilt this morning with all these beautiful, beautiful creatures that we've seen. And you know, you're in the presence of wild dog. And Kim, you'd like to know, do they do much sleeping after, particularly after? But the majority of the time, they will, like most predators, they'll get out of the hotter sort of times of the day, which is coming up. Like any other creature, any other predator, they would definitely take an opportunity if it presented itself. So as you can see, the grass blowing right now, the wind is in our favour, or in favour, it's blowing towards us. So any prey animal would not smell the wild dog. They would get the scent of a prey animal coming towards them, and then they would really pep up and prick their ears up. But if that doesn't present itself, they will probably stay like this for some time. They might move into another area and get a shadier area, because obviously they're resting and conserve their energy. But it depends on their hunger as well too, Kim. If they're really, really hungry, and they need to feed in the morning, and it was blistering heat at that time. You can see this animal up to your right now, Andrew, has just pricked up his ears and stood up. Pretty much on cue what we were saying. He's picked up the scent of something, or he's heard something. Look and a focused stance there. So Kim, fantastic. Time they'll get out of the heat of the day and hunt in the afternoons when it's a bit cooler into the night. The nice thing about this also, folks, is sitting with these animals, you get to see natural behaviours coming to us, as opposed to we springing, just like turning up on the location. You start to feel very comfortable with it. Really have a good look at what's going on. This is potentially the alpha male. Sorry, sorry, I couldn't see through the grass there. That's a female. I do apologise. You just don't know. It's very difficult to see, particularly when they're younger. If the grass is long, it's a little bit tricky sometimes. But that could be alpha female, actually. I touched on it before on the question from somebody that said, who is the leader of the hunt? It is predominantly the male or the alpha female. The alpha male, but that just depends on the terrain and so many different contributing factors. In Ohio, great to have you with us, and thanks for your question about whether they'll stay at a den site for a long time or whether they move around. It's another one of those answers, Andy, that I sort of have to say there's variables involved, and quite a volatile existence being a predator, and you have to keep your wits about you. You're very, very careful, so they could be pushed out by hyena. Or if there was a pack of Beautiful, beautiful animals. So really what I like to do. The temperature is rising slowly. It's probably just touching 20 now, 20 degrees. I'll have to convert that for you into Celsius. Oh, sorry. Obviously in the mornings and in the afternoons, when the air's a bit more moist. Absolutely beautiful blue sky at the moment. And it's just a beautiful location, very, very peaceful. And we're in the presence of one of the, arguably, no, it's not even arguably, they are the most strategic hunters in Africa. Just a note there, it doesn't look like it right now. They're flat. You will get these, the dogs will be lifting their heads up and down often, and this is a real look. They're watching also for predators. They could be easily attacked or fatally. Peggy, thank you for being on board. Excuse me, please. It's a combination of things, Peggy. Such vast areas, they would undoubtedly move into farmland. And when you think about it, when humans come along with domesticated animals that are nowhere near as aware or able to escape predators, the wild dogs used to see that as basically a new food source. So they would take farmers' stock, which obviously ends up in a human-animal conflict. Unfortunately, eradicating wild dog from certain areas. Now, if you role play that, Peggy, and everyone listening, I have to always tell you or explain to you and share with you as opposed to tell, but the experiences that I've had where I've worked my heart was racing. I just did not want to lose these dogs, and we found them again. The temperature got to a point where they decided it was time just to go flat, and what we mean when we say they go flat is that they wanted to just get out of the sun and get out of the heat. So that's exactly where we're at now. They're finding new shady spots, and they'll probably wouldn't, well, not the only way, but one of the ways that would that potentially make them move is if a prey animal came onto them and presented the opportunity to them. So that's where we're standing now, folks, and there's a beautiful, if you just come down a little bit now, mate, to the right, you got this individual. I do apologise, Andrew, to just make you as you zoom in there, but we've got this individual just walking off, and you can see looking for better shade under there with one of his pack members. So that's where we're at, folks, and it's pretty special. It was an amazing morning. Folks, I think I might just quickly recap over that again, because I think we had a bit of a sound issue, and I do apologise about that. You know, just occasionally we do have these little glitches. We are out in the middle of Africa, broadcasting from a vehicle that's sending a signal to a repeater, to a satellite, to London, and then to the United States and all over the place. So do apologise, but occasionally these little glitches crop up. So just in a nutshell, we had a really beautiful encounter with the wild dog this morning. We came on to quarantine with them. The area is called quarantine. The light was beautiful. I remember one time Andrew had the camera on the dogs, and I was looking on a monitor, and I was just tracking along at the same speed at them. They were trotting along at about sort of, I don't know, about 8 miles an hour, just over 10 kilometres an hour, and it was fantastic. It looked really beautiful. And then we followed them down to the dam where they had the encounter with the hyena, and a bit of an altercation there. Put the hyena in his place, and he took off and then carried on hunting. We got to a point where we are right now where it's just getting too warm for them, and they've gone looking for shade. So we're in the presence of five wild dog, and those 5 wild dog are known as the Investec pack. They used to be 7 up until I think it was about a week ago. A couple of them were killed, and we now have 5. But these dogs the average, we had a great question before, just to, if you weren't with us and you've just joined us, we had a great question about what's the average pack size. It's about sort of 7 to 9, 10 in this part of Africa. But in Kruger, there has been amazing sightings, as I said, of up to 30. And I mean, I do recall there was a wonderful scientist, I just can't remember his name, I met in Kruger probably 20 years ago. Oh, goodness, I might have to go back in my mind to remember his name, but he was a wonderful man that took us to see some wild dogs, and he's told us stories of seeing up to 60. So, I mean, that's just an incredible amount. I think those recordings would be very rare, but he had been working there and dedicating his life to wild dog. So it's incredible. It's not uncommon to see packs of 20, but right in the area we are, 7 to 10 animals is quite common, and probably an average number. So I'm just going to reposition ourselves and try and get a little bit better a shot for Andrew, because it's a bit tricky for him. He's got lots of vegetation in front of him. I'm going to just go around the back and see if we can get these 2 dogs over on the left, Andrew. Folks, we do this often. The dogs do not get disturbed. see them just there. Welcome aboard, Yvonne. It's great to have you on board from New Jersey, another place I've been to America in the United States, and a fantastic place it is. Yvonne, you've asked a question that we get asked many times, and it's a really, really good question because it sort of allows a lot of people to understand why we do what we do. I'm just going to see if this dog repositions himself, or I'm going to, just so you don't have my hat in the way. He's just moved down. He might be able to smell something, actually. I'll just move my head out of the way. That's probably the easiest thing for Andrew. So Yvonne, you're asking, don't the vehicles crashing through the bush affect the dog's hunting ability, or any predator for that matter? The answer to it is no, Yvonne, because we've been doing this for so long, and these animals are so habituated, and we've been on them with so many successful hunts while we've been with them, and some not successful. We know that they've got very acute senses. They'll be relying on their sense of smell as much as their sense of hearing as well, and everything combined. I'm just going to try and get forward for you, mate. Sorry, Yvonne, I'm just talking to Andrew, and just let me get a better picture for you here. But Yvonne, it's a really, really super question that you ask, and it's obvious that you care about animal welfare like we all do. We have a very, very strict, how's that for you, mate? Just talking to Andrew, Yvonne, I do apologise. It's just a bit tricky where we are.
Exactly good.
Okay, I'll stay where I am. Yvonne, apologies about that. And you obviously care hugely about animal welfare, as all of us do. We wouldn't be doing this job if we didn't. There's this great word, and I did touch on it yesterday, but just a little bit more. Habituation is a word that's used in wildlife viewing and tourism hugely, and it basically means that you condition the animals to understand that we are not a threat. Now, I know you're not talking about threat. You're talking about us imposing or impinging the animal's ability to hunt. And I just want to reiterate, but we do have so many successful hunts with these animals that we stay a safe distance, or a respectful distance as well. The vehicles, particularly the vehicle we're in, has an engine in it that is a very, very quiet engine, and the animals can normally, because of the distance we are away, they might pick up an alarm call of an animal and a prey species very, very easily. So, but the thing I also just want to touch on, you talked about the sort of sound of us crashing through. It does sound a lot more intense on these microphones that we have on the vehicles and the cameras than it actually is, and I really want to push that home to everyone. It sounds like we're taking the paint off and scratching the trees up and down the sides of the vehicles. It's not that bad exactly where we are, but the microphones have a tendency to magnify that sound dramatically. So hopefully, Yvonne, we've put your mind at ease there, and understand that animal welfare is come first. We get in as fast as we can, or the best we can, and then we respect morally and ethically how we conduct ourselves. But thank you very, very much for the question, Yvonne. Really great one, and I'm sure a lot of people think the same thing. just trying to watch to see what individuals are where. There's one that I think right in your vision that you just had. There's one lying down, there's another one in a tree just on it, sorry, underneath a tree, not in a tree, underneath a tree next to that. There's a couple more over to the right, so they're very hard to see at the moment, folks, but I suppose it's like, you know, we're in the presence of them. We will probably cross back to Pete sometime very shortly, but I just wanted to also elaborate a little bit more on the reason why the number has changed in this pack. This wild dog pack, as I said before, if you've just joined us, used to be 7, but is now 5. Now, they met up with another pack, which doesn't end up in sort of happy days all the time. They normally will have a bit of conflict, and one will either try and get out of the situation, or depending on numbers. But if they're reasonably matched, they might take on each other, and that's exactly what happened with a pack called the half-tail pack. We think that the other individual died from wounds, fatally wounded by the other pack. So these situations occur. That do overlap, and animals that traverse different very, very loose territories will come in contact with each other, and those sorts of altercations occur. So unfortunately that's what did happen, but that's life, and that's raw, and it's real, and that's what Wild Safari Live is about. We don't gloss over the reality. It's definitely about being out here, and you are seeing it happen live, and it's not always pretty, and it's very sometimes, you know, we advise viewer discretion, but we try and deal with it in a way that's delicate and respectful. But it is the wild, and it's raw, and it's real, and we're really, really lucky to be here. We've just got them lying down, and they pop their heads up now and again. That's very, very characteristic of wild dogs, and lion as well. You'll see them do it. They'll pop their head up, they hear a sound, or they're used to our voices. It's not that, they're just hearing, they're either looking for a potential opportunity or looking out for predators as well. So they've always got to keep their wits about them. Even though they look like they're sleeping, they will be very, very alert, and you can tell those beautiful big ears give them a great ability to hear everything that's going around. The vegetation here, folks, is very, very thick, so it's very difficult to access. I just brought one of the other vehicles in, and they took about 40 minutes to find where we were. So it is a very, very tricky place to get in and out of, and I think we're probably just going to sit tight for the minute, and we'll see what happens. Anna Marie, welcome aboard and thanks for your tweet. It's great to have you with us this morning on Wild Safari Live, and it's just been an incredible morning, and I do often give these distances, but it's great to have you, everyone out there, and thank you, Anna Marie, for doing this, reminding me to explain how far I am away from the dogs, because sometimes through the camera it's a little bit difficult to get the gauge how far we are away. So thanks, Anna Marie. It's really a great question. I'm about I'd say 10 meters, about 30 feet from the individual that Andrew, I'm sorry, has in the shot at the moment. Very difficult to see that animal. It's just next to that tree and pops his head up now and again. I'm about 30 feet, 10 meters away from him. This morning, they walked right we're here for. So this is a really perfect distance, it feels to me, and you just get this intuitive feeling about it. So excuse me. I do apologise about my coughing and spluttering, and Andrew and I this morning. It's woken up with a bit of a husky voice this morning. Really great question from Chris in Yosemite. Wow, Yosemite, what a place, Chris. I would love to go to, and hopefully one day I'll be able to do that. Chris, great to sort of keep this on a international, and I've always had this term global local, and I'll talk more about that after I answer your question. But Chris, you're asking whether we have the equivalent in Australia, and we certainly do. We've got an animal called a dingo, which is spelled D-I-N-G-O. It's about the same size as a wild dog, very similar in its behaviour and its hunting strategy and things, very successful. Our largest canid, or probably our largest terrestrial predator, actually. Obviously, saltwater crocodiles are our biggest predator in Australia, but we have a dingo, and they're a beautiful looking dog. There's a couple of different varieties of them, say varieties, more like eco-types. You'll get a sort of a more desert adapted dingo that's a lot leaner, with a very, very short coat, and you get more of a mountain dingo as well that spends time in the colder areas. Even though everyone thinks Australia is very, very hot all year round, it's not. It gets down to very, very cold temperatures, and below freezing in the Alps, well, what we call Alps anyway, and then in the desert as well. As you know, deserts get very, very cold. So but the mountain dingoes have got a much thicker coat, and they're beautiful looking dogs, absolutely fantastic. If you go back from their origins, there's thoughts that they did come across potentially from New Guinea many thousands of years ago, with people, who knows how the original origination of them. But there is a dog that that occurs in New Guinea called the New Guinea wild dog. It does look a little bit similar, but who knows? And I'm sure if you looked up after we finished Wild Safari Live online, you'll be able to learn a bit more about dingoes. But great question, and thank you very, very much for asking that. So my little point about global local is it's here we are sitting in Djuma in Sabi Sands in South Africa. It's great to remember that not only is Wild Safari Live a global program that we're all watching, we can take those questions internationally as well and bring it back down to exactly where we are right now. So I think that's one of the most fantastic things, the interaction that we have with you, and as I always say, we wouldn't be here without you guys, so thanks so much for being with us today. I think it's probably a good time. These dogs are really flat now, and we're just looking at grass. It can be great for a bit while they pop their heads up and whatnot, but if they just go down, we're just looking at grass. And I want to make sure we find out what Pete's up to, so why don't we do that right now? Let's cross to Pete, and we'll see you just now.
Well, warthog back with us this side. Welcome back with us this side. We're looking at some warthogs. And warthogs in the Sabi Sands, in the area that we're in, they can sometimes be a little bit nervous, just because they are at the top of the menu for leopard, lion, even wild dog and hyena sometimes. So it's great to see them like this. This specific little group we see quite often. We're on an area here called Sandy Patch, sort of halfway towards Voitila Lodge. And we're quite happy to see them, nice and relaxed. This is an adult female, the one on the right-hand side. And then the one to the left of her would be probably a offspring from last year that's still with her, a young male. And then the one on the far left, the little one, would be one that was born this year. Most likely would have had 2 or 3 siblings, but normally out of 3 or 4 little piglets, 1 or 2 make it to adulthood. So, but very, very good condition. All 3 of them are really healthy. That one should be around 6-7 months old now, maybe a little bit, 8 months at the most. Here's the young one. Why I say this is a young male, it's not from the tusks, because it is a young one. The tusks aren't very big, but look very carefully at the face. Back to the female, she's doing something that warthogs are often seen doing. She's down on her knees like that. It's technically her wrists, but let's not get too technical about what is what in the design of the legs. The silhouetted view of the mouth, there you can see the big tusk, but look, as she's chewing, you'll have to look very carefully. You can see there's a lower set of teeth. The top tusk. So the top tusk is more like a blunt object, like a hammer, so to speak. So using it for digging out roots and for fighting with the males, for defense for the females. But the sharp, or when the males fight, that also plays a role. And then ultimately for defense. Warthogs are not tackled lightly by any predator, even lion, even leopard. They have to be wary of warthogs. I know of lions and I know of leopards that have been killed by injuries caused by warthogs. So that's what that lower set of tusks are for. Well, there we can see the younger one, definitely a male, apart from the warts on the face that showed us earlier. Now at the same time, while we're sitting with these warthogs, there's also a nice herd of impala. As we arrived here, there was a little bit of activity, but they seem to be settling down a bit now. You can see this is a nice open area. Let's pop around to this side. The impalas over there, they are starting to settle down a bit. You can see a few of them are standing in the shade now. And I don't see the male at the moment. He's off on the side. We'll have a look at him just now. But those guys getting into the shade, the other one's still grazing a little bit, but they are getting into the sort of the slower part of the morning, as we can see from a lot of the behavior. The wild dog's getting a bit more relaxed. A lot of animals now would have had their initial sort of morning activity, feeding, going down to drink perhaps, grooming, all that kind of thing, and now they'll be slowing down and just taking a bit easy. Impalas, like the buffalo from earlier, they are ruminants. So they'll need to spend some time ruminating or chewing the food from this morning again. But there will be a bit of activity as well. There's the male. If we keep going, he's off to the side at the moment. But as I said a few minutes ago, as we arrived here, he was actually chasing the females around, keeping them in a herd. And we are getting into the rutting season now. For the rest of May and beginning June, into June as well, you will see this on various occasions on the drives. Lots of activity from the males. In this case, he's on his own. I don't see a bachelor herd close by. A bachelor herd would obviously refer to a group of male impala. And as we get more and more into the height of the rutting season, you would always have bachelor male impalas hanging around the periphery of these groups. And you'll have the dominant male, which in this case is the guy we're looking at. He would be chasing them away. And in doing so, he's showing them that he's fit and healthy, so don't mess with me. He's also showing the females that, look at me, I'm fit enough to chase these guys away. And the fitter and stronger you are, the more opportunities you will have for mating. But you will certainly learn a lot about the rutting season over the next couple of weeks. You get fascinating behavior and lots of sounds and noise and running around and fighting amongst the males. So it is something that is quite interesting to see. But more about rutting as we experience it over the next many weeks. For now, I'm going to say goodbye. It's been a lovely morning, great big surprise starting with the wild dogs. Lovely little intimate moment with the hyenas. From myself, Peter Pretorius, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Brian on camera, always fantastic. And HT is going to say goodbye to you from the wild dogs. We'll see you this afternoon for the afternoon safari.
So folks, we've stuck with them for quite a long time this morning. They did go flat, and that's just one of those things. You have to be with them and be on their terms, and that's what we were one of the pack this morning, where they allowed us to be with them all that time. You can probably hear some noise off here. One of the other vehicles is just leaving the location, but I just wanted to show you that he just popped his head up there. You might be able to come in nice and tight there, Andrew, just to see that beautiful boy just there. And we've been with these dogs since this morning. It's been an incredible time. We've been really lucky. We saw that hyena interaction. It was just fantastic. He's just gotten up too, Leo. And just moving off. I might just reposition. He's going to look for some more shade, I think. I think he's really looking for shade in there. I might just take a little back up here. Yeah, they're just lying down here. A little bit tricky. Just over there, there's one there, Danny. One just there. So what, folks, I'm just going to let you watch these dogs. They're going for more shade. It's getting really hot where they are. And I just want to say thank you a frenetic start, and Andrew and I have had a beautiful morning, and basically it's a sign off from me. We can't really see the pups, but I can assure you they're there, and we'll try and pick up on them later on. Have a great day or night wherever you are. See you soon. Thanks so much. Bye now.